Hey guys, welcome to a very stormy TGS where outside it is beating down with hail. This is a beautiful William Powell Boxlock ejector with beautiful Damascus barrels. Let's have a look, shall we? So the reason we really wanted to share this gun for you is the amazing gear that it comes with, and actually this in itself is a proper history of William Powell and the history of this gun sort of all collected together in one place, and as such, like I said, we want to share it with you. The gun in itself, and I mean no offence to it, is a fairly unexotic but particularly beautifully made Boxlock ejector shotgun. You have a really very nice quality piece of walnut. You have it nicely checkered with the flat on the checker and on the flats there, which is a very William Powell thing. Double triggers, a standard top lever. So this is post lifter latch territory. We did do a video on a William Powell lifter latch some years ago, which was their patent opening system that they ran with their hammers and then into and dealies as well. Subsequent to that, they started using a proper top lever. It's amazing how technology just never moved on from a top lever when it's. So you've seen quite a few people coming in and making side levers again now, and I would love to see a resurgence. I'd like pigeon side lever. Can you imagine how cool that would be? Gold inlaid safe. Beautiful Damascus barrels, which were black powder proofed, and this is where this starts to become kind of a beautiful sum of its parts. As you have here the charges for 12 bore breech loading gun number 8891, which is the original case for this gun, is 3 grams black powder to 1 1/8 ounce of shot. Pretty cool, that, isn't it? So it has been reproofed in nitro. The current legislation obviously states that you're not supposed to be putting steel through any twist barrel or Damascus barrel guns. So this kind of does mean that the days of this gun are numbered in terms of voluminous shooting, bar shooting pound 20 a shot cartridges in bismuth, which, to be fair, for the privilege of keeping on using this gun, I don't feel particularly upset about, because it is in itself a beautiful thing, and to be honest, to go and shoot a box for £30 through it would be more than enough to make your day, I think, providing that you are on point. And 1889 to 1990 this is dated, and this we know not only from records that we can look up online, but here is sort of part of the history of this gun. Firstly, this is a beautiful Oaken leather case with the beige finish. You've got the maker's label in the back there, which is just beautiful in every way. We have a lot of accessories with it, which we'll go through, but it's got a lot of paperwork with it as well. So this is a September the 12th to the 18th, 1974 piece of paper out of the Shooting Times and Country magazine, the same that is still existent today. What is really interesting, and I'm going to aim to get this overlaid so that those with William Powell's would want part of this for a database, can actually read through this. You have the dates of manufacture of various guns, who they belong to, and this is just a beautiful piece of history. And although these records are indeed public by request from William Powell, that is still existent today, owned by J.M. Osborne, not quite in the sort of way this was, but it is still very fascinating for those who are into their old stuff. Anyway, that is amazing. A 1974 50-year-old Shooting Times. And an interesting one, when you flip it over, you have letters to the editor. And it's these sort of things that actually give you an insight into the average shooter's thoughts at the time. You have various articles here. First one is that game license difficulties. I'd like to report to the editor that I struggled to get a game license. Game licenses don't exist anymore. Do dogs or bitches win more field trials? Apparently in this year or the year before, prior to this, bitches won by a slight amount, but nothing negligible except in retriever trials. You have a thing on popcorn wheat, you know, in terms of making wheat better. We don't worry about these things anymore. We've moved so far past this, and how blessed we are to be in this day and age. It always is wonderful, and yet we still can hark back and have some of this old gear and dwell in that. And this is, it's just bloody fascinating, isn't it? You also have little advert cut out for the Powell General cartridge. We'll say we're at 35 Cars Lane, Birmingham, and which I think is particularly nice because these are still in existence today and quite a cool little collectible thing. These are the Shooter's Yearbooks, Ely Shooter's Yearbooks, or the Ely Diary. You have a 1964 and a 1965 version. It's much the same format as they are today. Absolutely awesome, I think anyway. Many single-handed partridge estates swap all their early pheasant eggs for nearby shooting friends in exchange for later eggs, which can then be hatched when the wild partridges are off the keeper's hands and he has time to rear them. Oh, it's a fantastic thing that in the 1960s wild birds were prevalent enough to bother putting anything like that in one of these diaries. You also have this, a Hawksley grease pot, 2 Purdy snap caps, a variety of turn screws and nipple screws, either in horn or ebony. These are all very pretty, little chamber brush there. I love this kind of stuff. I mean, I find it absolutely fascinating and beautiful in every way. We have a little look at this, and you've got a Turk's head mop, which is probably not allowed to call it that, but Turk's head mop, which are particularly volatile. You can't get any more, even though ironically modern day guns will probably cope with this a lot better than the guns back then. Not that this particularly soft iron damages the barrels. No comments there, I think. Anyway, that's more enough from that. Apart from you have this push-through jag, which I think is stunning. I've never seen one for a 12-bore before. I have, but they're relatively uncommon for 12-bore sizes. It's something that we associate much more with a rifle now. That's awesome. Period handguard. That is much nicer than all the things you see nowadays of any quality. Anyway, bar the ones of extreme quality. 2 clean brush, some horsehair, and this. I know we probably should get onto the gun, but if you're anything like me, all of this stuff is just as fascinating. The shotgun cleaning procedure. I could take you through it, but it hasn't really changed a great deal. For prolonged storage, coat all the metal parts with grease. That's something that people don't really do anymore, I think. We're all very complacent that our guns do not rust and rot like they did back, well, certainly when this was new, and up until the point that even in the 70s people were still very concerned with the longevity of their guns. Without care, I suppose, is a thing. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I like that. Anyway, that's quite enough looking at these bits, and I was supposed to really look at these at the end because, well, I suppose actually the gun in itself, and a gun like this, where it is not of any particular excitement, is a sum of its parts, and it's these bits that make a gun like this special and what give it some provenance, and that in itself is probably more special than anything you can get nowadays. Anyway, let's look at the gun. William Powell harked back to 1802, and him and a chap called Joseph Simmons started their gun-making careers. He went solo, I think, about 10 years after that, and over the course of time, him and his family took it over and over and over, up until the point of about World War I. And it was at that time that actually gun-making across the globe, and certainly across Britain, struggled, due to lack of metal parts, due to lack of people, and due to lack of money to invest thereafter. What's quite interesting is that by their centenary in 1902 of William Powell starting gunmaking, they had produced 11,000 guns. 11,000 guns. They made guns for military guns as well. They made some for the Indian Uprising, the Indian Rebellion. They made all sorts of bits. So they weren't confined to just a sporting arms manufacturer. Like all gun makers, they struggled a bit through the Depression, and then in World War II, again, like just about every Birmingham manufacturer, switched to military production, because actually, why wouldn't you when that's where a lot of the money is? And when nobody's buying guns, you make hay, and if the government's also telling you to do something, you get on and do it, don't you? They were a maker of gauges and armoured vehicles, which is quite cool, I think. Yeah, that's actually very cool. And it was amazing how these essentially artisanal engineering companies ploughed their way into this kind of thing. It's the ideal thing. Gun makers and tool makers are very similar, and engraver can come in really handy when making fine tools. So there's a lot of crossover there, and you don't really think about it until you say, actually, if all those staff had to be transferred into something else, that is what it was. I think that's fascinating. I don't know about you, but hey, that's it. In terms of action here, you have that beautiful step top tang, an extremely long and slender lever, and you have that third bite on top that has a fairly simple locking system through the front of that spindle arm there. Well, that's the front of the top lever actually. It just locks into place. A nice and easy way of tightening a gun up. It also allows you there, they've got a little ejector stop, and instead of putting it through the bottom here, they actually put it on the back of that bite arm there. Stop the ejectors coming all the way out. Quite a smart bit of kit. In terms of barrel and Damascus quality, when you look over something like this, you're just looking for that complete uniformity, and it is beautifully put together. I think you can look at it. William Powell's done 13 Cars Lane, Birmingham on the top right there. We're looking across these Damascus barrels. There are finer quality barrels out there you'll find, but you'll have to look very hard. They are in themselves a mesmerising piece of artwork, and as much as one admires barrels that are made now for their technology and strength, it certainly just doesn't require the skill it would take to make these. I'm absolutely enthralled by how beautiful these barrels are, and I hope you can kind of get a glimpse of how amazing and continuous that Damascus work is. It is absolutely beautiful. By 1950, the premises at Cars Lane was actually part converted into a retail premises, and William Powell bought the fishing arm of Wesley Richards. So there was a little bit of chopping and changing about there. By 1984, however, the world was changing quite a lot. And between then, the showroom starting in that time, mail order was becoming a bigger thing, and William Powell was actually one of the first people to really invest in mail order guns and mail order sporting goods at that time, in that modern way at least. These guys actually stopped making guns in this country. But I think that was very common back in the late 70s and early 80s, and in fact where they chose to have their guns made was between Spain and Italy for various reasons. I believe in the 80s their guns were made by Abbiatico and Salvinelli for the most part. Nowadays William Powell do exist, but their guns are made by Battista Rizzini. Again, very fine guns. I think there's the common way of putting it is they're British guns made abroad. I suppose you can view that however you want, but this gun really is from a pinnacle of their gun making career, and a bit of an odd one because shortly after this, guns like this would have been fairly obsolete. Their side locks came in, and a best Boxlock with Damascus barrels and an ejector was a fairly short-lived thing in gun technology land anyway. In terms of engraving on the action, it's fine scroll work with a bouquet on each side, and that is just stunning. It is absolutely stunning. There's nothing about this gun that isn't really well put together. And the only sad thing is that it is not brand new, and that's not sad in itself, because like some of these older things, if they could tell stories, they really would. In terms of handling and balance, it's just exquisite. It really is. Just another beautiful piece of British gun making history. Guys, thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for indulging me and sort of looking through this thing. I can't help but share something like this with you because it is so beautiful in its collection of stuff. Cool, isn't it? Guys, have a great day. Take care. It's been beautiful. If you want to support us, don't forget to go down below and sign up as a member. It's only $2.99 a month. We really appreciate the support. Take care, guys.